hour 2 of our business meeting, and Cammie was fading. She wanted to bail, so I bribed her to get her to stick around.
With a cinnamon crumb muffin.
So we got Cammie here for another little while. We better hurry up though, because she's pounding through this thing kind of quick. The last couple days, we've posted some vlogs about our sexuality and practices and sex toys and things like this. And there's been quite a few comments, some kinder than others, but a lot of questions about if we had our kids edit these vlogs, or if they know, or how do you talk to your kids about sex, or what's comfortable and not comfortable. We're gonna talk about that. We did have our kids do the same thing they do with all of our vlogs, which is Seven edited this, Dove chose the thumbnail and the title. We talked to all of our kids openly about the content of the vlog, which in one sense was pretty explicit in that we said the word sex toys and we're going to a sex shop. But in one sense, like, that's not explicit at all. Like, it's really kind of funny to me that this is so controversial to some people. And I'm not saying I even disagree, but it's like people don't have a problem with some people having sex or watching certain shows, but for some reason, like when it's your parents or married people,
super taboo.
Then it gets into this like realm where it's like that's inappropriate.
I don't know if people have it in the same category as like incest, where they feel like, oh, you shouldn't talk to your kids openly about your sex life because that's like incestual somehow.
I mean, they're fine with their 5th grader learning about sex in school, usually. But if a parent's talking to, in this case, I don't know what grade 7 would even be in, but he's 13, saying, hey, sex toys exist, and hey, we use them, it's almost like too personal. Mm-hmm. And I want to explore that because I think our fear around our children with sex is actually preventing a lot of help that we could give them and a lot of relational opportunities.
You're eating my muffin.
Or is it too explicit? One of the first questions and comments we saw a lot of is, were they uncomfortable or did you give them the choice? And people say things like, well, I wouldn't have wanted my parents to talk to me about sex when I was that age. Which is really weird that all of a sudden we're super concerned with kids' choices, because we don't give our kids the choice to go to school or to learn about science and history or math or piano or take Hebrew lessons or anything else. And in my experience, sex education, like true sex education, not school sex education, is more important and has had more of an impact on my life than like all of the history and math that I ever learned in school like put together. So why would we even have our kids' preferences be a factor in this? I mean, unless you're the type that's like, oh, I let my kids decide if they want to learn math or not at all, at any age. Otherwise, this is a parent's decision. Like, we decide what's important for our kids to know about, and then we might decide, well, what's the best way to teach them that doesn't make it boring or too awkward. But we don't ask our kids if it's their choice to learn something that we think is one of the most important things in navigating life. And I say sex, not just for the pleasure aspect, although I think that's important, but even for the reproductive aspects in that. Like, can you imagine a kid getting to the age of 18 and not knowing how reproduction works at all? I mean, I guess that's doesn't require a ton of imagination for people not too long ago. I know that other people are thinking, well, my parents never taught me and I got by. Okay, here I am. So why do parents have to teach it? Because that's what's really awkward. Well, as parents, there's a couple questions I want you guys to consider and that we have to consider, because I'm better at showing like what's wrong than actually showing what's right. I'm not claiming there's like one right way to do this, but I think a lot of the concerns and fears are really kind of shallow and invalid. The question I would ask is, if you're not going to teach your kids about sex, who would you want to teach your kids about sex? Because someone's going to. If you don't think now is the appropriate time, this is the second question, when do you think will be? In your mind, when is the good time to teach your kids about sex? Because I hear a lot of people say, well, they're too young or it's not appropriate. But I don't think that's usually the case. Our kids are so smart. If you look at how they pick up an iPad and what they absorb from like popular television or YouTube videos, like they get it, like they understand it. It's not that they're too young. I think we're using that as parents as an excuse because we're uncomfortable. And we think there's gonna be this magic age that comes along when it becomes quote unquote appropriate. But like when they're 18, is like, and we haven't talked to sex about them for 18 years, that's when it's gonna feel comfortable? Like, no, it's never gonna feel comfortable because there's shame around it for us usually, or it's just a hard topic.
It's a vulnerable topic. And if you're not okay with vulnerability, it's gonna be hard.
So the way that we think you face that is by facing it today, not by waiting. Now, it doesn't mean you need to like share every single explicit detail today, but to start working on the issue and not just seeing it as sex education, but seeing it as actually getting rid of shame and building relationship. Those types of things we can start today. A little muffin break here.
Is this all yours right here?
If you're looking for motivation to talk to your kids about sex sooner rather than later, I would encourage you to ask yourself these two questions. One is, how much do you think your kid knows about sex right now? Now for us, we've been unpleasantly surprised how much we underestimated our own kids' knowledge. Now, it might not be accurate knowledge, but it's like they know it exists. They've heard the word. Like, it's so much in popular culture now. And we wouldn't be making this video 100 years ago or 200 years ago, but we're making it now for today's landscape, for today's information age, where kids know so much so fast, way more than usually parents think that they know. And I think this is true about my own sex journey. Like, I found out about sex not from my parents, from a family member, cousin, and my guess is my parents a lot of this time didn't know that I knew that, but I did, and I kind of went with it. And the second question is, how much do you think your kids are gonna know by the time that they're 18? This is just something that's worth thinking about and talking with your spouse or partner or friends about. And let's get an accurate answer about that, and then let's act upon that. So if they're already gonna know a lot by the time they're 18, most people do, you know, if you just look at stats and surveys or whatever, then this is a huge case why we should be proactive as parents, and we should be the ones going to our kids, not waiting reactively for them to hear it from all these other sources. This like mishmash of like pop culture, Hollywood, YouTube, and then they have to kind of like navigate this alone and piece together some sort of like cobbled sex education or belief that's shrouded in secrecy and shame and ignorance and like whatever it is that Hollywood teaches, like just like lies basically about what sex is and what it's for. If it's, you see, like, I'm the only person eating the muffin, it's because Cammy's ate hers already. And now she's trying to make me feel guilty for not sharing my half.
I'm not trying to make you feel guilty.
Well, you're like, oh, I thought this was a bribe for me.
That's mine.
I know,
Yeah, put it down. As Ben's talking, I'm thinking of, well, how much have I actually talked to, especially my girls, about sex? And honestly, I haven't talk to them a lot about it. It's actually a really hard thing for me to talk to about, I think because I wasn't talked to about it by my parents, and it feels super uncomfortable. It feels wrong somehow, but even though I believe it's not, it still feels that way. Ben and I had this conversation last week about me actually showing them how to put a tampon in, and I was just like, oh, it just feels so wrong somehow to like show them that. But I'm like, but then yet it doesn't feel wrong. Can you not do that right here? But yet it's not wrong. But yet I don't feel like it's wrong for them to see a baby come out of my vagina. I'm just trying to have full disclosure here, guys, because I struggle with this, and I get it if you struggle with it, but I'm trying to fight against the struggle and the shame, and I don't want my girls to have the same experience as I did, where I actually didn't even know how to put a tampon in until I was 18, and Ben like helped show me.
19, 20.
19. And that's kind of a shitty thing to think about. And I don't think I need to have shame over that. I didn't really know anything about my anatomy. Now, I don't think that's probably a common conservative Christian story, but it's probably not a common story for a lot of people. It's more like they're getting their information from outside sources, not the home, which I think is a problem too.
Well, yeah, I'm not making this video to say like, hey, we're so awesome and free, but I do think that there's some beliefs that we have that are working towards health, and there's some beliefs we've had in the past that didn't. So that's where it's really important to like at least be honest about what those beliefs are that work towards health. And a lot of these ones that are like cloaked in protecting our kids really aren't. The final question I want to address is, when is it age appropriate to talk to your children about sex? We would say always. It's always appropriate. You don't have to give them all the information, but something happens when you teach your children about something as big as sex at any age. And it's really not about penises or vaginas or certain specific words. It doesn't even need to include the words like pleasure, but there's like the lessons, and then there's the lessons beneath or behind the lessons. When we pray as a family around the dinner table, we hold hands and we say these words. And Rainier, who's 1, holds hands with us, and he hears us. He doesn't understand any of the words that we're saying, but he's still learning something. He's learning that we're a family and that we hold hands and work together for this moment. He's learning that we do this thing regularly, that whatever it is, it's important and that it happens before food. He's learning that we believe in something bigger than ourselves. The older he gets, the more like the words are gonna make sense and certain lessons are gonna fit, but these other things he's learning right now. With our children, I think there's a lie that we believe that it needs to not be awkward, or you shouldn't learn about this thing until you're actually able to physically do it. And those things aren't true. Like every time we talk about sex with our children, we're teaching them that our relationship matters, that they're gonna hear about truth from their parents, that this thing that you have questions and feelings about on the inside doesn't make you awkward or weird or a pervert. It actually makes you normal. And those things, no one is more qualified to teach those things to our kids than parents. And those lessons start at day 1. They don't start when a kid turns 18. You know, those aren't even having to do with sex. So what words you use, you know, what scientific data or charts or images, that's to me all inconsequential. I mean, like we have to teach our kids whatever is the most helpful to them in whatever phase they're at, no matter what. If we teach them about something, or if we choose to shelter them from something, that has like really long-term consequences or benefits on relationship. So that was a long little discussion here, but I really hope that this will spark some conversation with you guys, because our kids are gonna learn about sex. Like, that's just one of the things. And I feel like a lot of times as parents, we just have our head in the sand denying that reality. And we're like, they're not ready, but they're already learning it. So we don't have the choice if they're ready or not. Our choice is, who are they gonna learn it from? So once we accept that reality, I think we can make some steps there. We do have a special announcement. We are going to be doing a live stream this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube. And the first topic we're going to cover is asking Dove and Seven what it was like to edit the vlogs about their parents going to a sex shop. And you guys will be able to ask your own questions to them, because that's one of the questions that was asked a lot here. For some of you, talking to your kids about sex seems like super daunting. I get that, because for me, it was and it still is that for me. So what I want to say to you, which is really, I'm saying this to myself, is
just start somewhere. Just take a baby step somewhere. Read something with your kids, that's already scripted, that you don't have to, figure out for yourself. Just start somewhere. It's okay that if you're having a hard time with this, I get it. So don't beat yourself up about not being able to talk to your kids. I really struggled with that. I wish I could be different, but I'm not. And you just have to start where you're at, and it's totally okay. In fact, start with just saying, hey, this is really hard for me, and I don't know why, but I'm trying to figure out why, and I'm trying to fight that and fight the shame that I feel around sex and talking about it. I think that could go a long way, because really at the end of the day, it's about your relationship with your kid and feeling bonded with them, and it's really just about that. So
yeah, I'm really glad you said that. I mean, in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first step is to admit that you're powerless. And we think that's for all people in all situations. And, we've been making videos about hiding behind Christian or spiritual codes. And I think a lot of times that code of saying, oh, it's not appropriate, is actually just a veiled way of saying that we're afraid. And it's actually better to it's okay to be afraid, but it's actually better just to say, I'm afraid of doing this, instead of saying, oh, God doesn't want me to,
right.
Because maybe you're wrong, maybe he does. And you're teaching your kids actually the wrong thing about who God is, as if God's afraid of sex or embarrassed about it, and he's not. To just say, yeah, like you said, to look at them and say, for some reason this is really hard for me to talk about. I don't know why, I wish it wasn't, and I'm looking into that. That's a teaching right there. It's one of the best ones, if that's true.
And sorry for not talking to you about it sooner, but this was where I was at.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah.
Here it is. Oh. It's so weird. They have such a big box for man, this thing's light as a feather. This is Cammie's custom made Enlightened Equipment synthetic insulating jacket for the Appalachian Trail. We're serious about this trail. I mean, we're buying gear, but this is a prototype because there's all these questions. We have to buy 6 of everything or 8 of everything. And one of the most important things we can have is a water resistant, or at least not even waterproof, but something that can keep you warm in the wet. So this is a small company in Wisconsin. We can go that route, or we can go Patagonia, but they're $200 times 6 or 8. We got to choose the colors and everything though. Not now, please.
Oh yeah. So you can get it wet, but it's not a rain jacket.
It's not a rain jacket.
If it's pouring rain, you want the rain jacket over you.
Okay, we're gonna be done with today's vlog because even though it's not even 11 o'clock yet, we filmed a crap ton and we're done. Remember, the live stream is this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. We hope to see you there. See you tomorrow. It makes your chest look flat.
Thank you. Appreciate that.